and we'll take it from there.
Happy days.
Happy days, mate. So, welcome to the Time to Grow Up Dad podcast. I'm here with
I like the name.
Dean
That's good.
Williams. Yeah, it's kind of a play because, like, I feel like as a parent, I'm always sort of growing up. Well, I've been a parent only for like a year plus, and it just feels like the last year I've had like this exponential growth. I don't know if that's like a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just like learning so many things on the fly, and it just felt like that's a fitting name for the podcast.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. For those who don't know who you are, maybe just give our dear viewers and listeners a little bit about yourself, and if you like to disclose how many kids you are dealing with at the moment.
We've got our own business. I actually share a business partner with, or share an office with my business partner, Matt. There he is.
Yeah.
Matty and I, as well as a few other guys, we own the Right Fit Personal Training. We got 4 locations, about to open up a 5th one in Auckland. And we've got, my wife and I have 3 kids, or soon to be 3 kids in a few weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's back to Groundhog Days again.
Yeah. It's exciting times.
Yeah. Hopefully you're going to be getting some extra sleep in then. Because how old's the second one at the moment?
Sleep. We'll see. Like normally, I kind of balance it around, training and all that kind of stuff. Because it happens. But you've just got to remember it's just a phase. And then for me, like when you're going through times of less sleep, I can kind of lean on my fitness to a certain degree. Because at the moment, times where sleep is good and we've got a good routine and all that kind of stuff, I train quite a lot. Like it's one of the benefits of my job. Whereas when we have a newborn, probably the first 1 to 3 months, if I'm not getting as much sleep, I'll just train less, which means I can balance it out in that space. But also, like, my wife and I have a great dynamic, and so she makes that process really as easy as she can.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good, man. Well, I had a question for you. I knew you actually a little bit. I've been sort of following your journey, and I know that the Right Fit has sort of really taken off, especially in the last year or so, with, as you said, so many branches. And I think off air we were sort of saying one is opening in Remuera as well.
Yep.
I had a question. How do you go about, I guess, managing and building a business of this magnitude while still being the father that you'd like to be at home, or just in general?
I think the simplest thing is just don't accept shit from yourself. To put it, like, we can probably expand on that quite a bit. But it's often where, like, I haven't been the person that I wanted to be proud of, or, I've seen people do things that I wouldn't necessarily agree with. It's always coming from a place of they're justifying their shit behavior. That they're tired, that they're stressed, that, whatever it is. And they use it as a justification. And for me, it's not about ignoring it either, but it's just about communicating it honestly. Like you can't.
I think that's something. Yeah,
you can't. You can't communicate it with like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. But we've got my daughter who's now 6, and my son who's like, oh, you know what? He turns 3 in January. I could probably communicate it with him to a certain degree, but particularly for my daughter who's 6, you can have honest conversations. Where if you say, hey, look, like I had a little bit of a hard day, because of this, and this. So as a result, like this is what I need. Like, I just need a little bit of space to put my things down for 10 minutes and then I'm all good.
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of people, they don't feel you can communicate honestly. Like it's different. Like, I'm not saying gaslight the kids, but like you get what I mean by communicate honestly. Like, you don't come in and go, life's not fair, the world's shit. Like, I had a shit day. You just like, I had a bit of a tough day because of this, and this, and I just need a minute to put my things down and then I'll be all good. Just like you communicate with anyone else.
Yeah, I think something you said there that really sort of stuck with me was like, don't, like, acknowledge that it's happening, and don't but don't also use it as an excuse. I think a lot of people sort of use like, and I'm sure you've seen this owning a personal training business, like people will come in and say, I've let my body slip because I've been putting, I've got no time for myself. I've got, like I've got X amount of kids, da, 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 and now I've taken a very healthy body, which I used to have, and now it's super, super unhealthy. And it's like, great, like we understand everyone's got problems, but don't try to use that as leverage, as an excuse to not do the hard work.
I think it's just a thing, and like, I talk to my teams about it all the time, because it's really interesting how all of these things come together. You've just got to be honest and willing to accept the consequences. So like, if you're looking at it, because some people, the situation is real in this. Maybe they work 2 jobs to support their kids. They're on the ropes. And then, sure, they could probably take care of their nutrition, but when it comes to exercise, they might literally not have a spare minute of the day. They're already neglecting their sleep, all that kind of stuff. But it's just about acknowledging like the situation and acknowledging the potential consequences of being like, cool, like if this goes on, like I might have these issues later in life. Am I willing or to accept that to achieve what I'm trying to do here? Pay down a mortgage or, get by or whatever it is. So you just need to be, honest and willing to accept the consequences. And then like, I also think as a dad too, and again, this is a bit of an old school mentality. People think dads need to be very strong characters, very stoic, like, we don't express any emotion, like, we're the rock of the family. And dynamics are different. Like, that's probably what I'd be for my family. Like my wife and I are a bit like old school in that space, but at the same time, I still think you can communicate. Like you can be firm, you can be unwavering to a certain extent. You can be like, dad's got it, but you can be like, dad's finding it hard. Yeah. Like dad's got it, dad's going to keep going. You don't need to worry, but it's a bit hard for dad right now.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I don't know what the dynamic is like in your house, but sort of in our household, primarily, or at least most of the time, I would make an effort to put our boy down every night. And exactly what you said. It's funny when you say it, it brings me back to literally every time I put him down when I was trying to tell him my day and so narrate like, hey, they're like, day was a bit rough, buddy. Like that went through a bit, and he's potentially not old enough to understand what sentences are at this point in time. And I think it's also important to start that openness at a very young age. And I feel like if we are able to do that with our kids starting when they're really, really young, I guess my hope is that as they grow up, they would kind of reciprocate that openness with their own problems. Rather than keeping it to themselves. And then when we go, and I've been a teenager, we've all been there, parents ask you what's going on, you're like, yeah, no, I'm fine. And then you lock the door and you're like, I'm not fine. And I anticipate that will definitely happen for sure. But at least the way I kind of think about it is hopefully they'll be able to, or be open enough to share a couple of their own struggles rather than just sort of bottling it up, because they'll affect them, and it'll affect, I would like to think, us as parents. We're like, we know something's wrong, but not that we can fix it, but we just kind of want to hear what's going on.
I think it's for me, like I always think about this, like, where's the, because like as much as I think it's a really good thing to like be able to communicate, like, what's going on for you. I'm like, and this is something I'm always conscious of myself, maybe rightly, maybe wrongly, is what's the line between me communicating a challenge with you understanding that I've still got full control of it versus you feeling like it's now become your problem? Does that make sense? So I often think about what's the difference in that conversation, particularly like if you're catching up for a beer with a friend. And like, say, for example, and because, mental health is really important in the men's community. If you have a friend who's like, I'm thinking about committing suicide. I know this got real dark for a second. That's a big weight to put on the other person.
Yeah, for
And like
sure.
your mate will always be there for you. And I think the best thing you can do is communicate. But like I always think about that with my kids is what's the difference between me downloading,
Mm.
which can potentially be a negative thing. They could then look at that and be like, I'm not going to communicate my emotions because you did and it fucking stressed me out all the time. Versus like communicating, like,
True.
versus communicating honestly and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this, this, and this, but I've got it, or this is what I'm thinking of doing, but I'm just finding it a bit hard right now. What's the, yeah, I always think about that, like balancing the line between communicating honestly with someone, but them not feeling like it's their responsibility to solve my problem. Because I think
Yeah,
that fine
that's a very good point.
that's a fine line. When you have that, if you can get that, then you've got good communication.
Yeah. I think that's even more important, I suppose, with kids as well, because they obviously, as they grow up, they start to develop a little bit more awareness on what is burden versus
Mm.
listening kind of situation. When they're young, and you're absolutely right there, and it hasn't really occurred to me, and hence why I started a podcast like this, is to sort of take that perspective of like being very mindful of how we present a certain problem, because we don't really want them to kind of think it's their fault. We just want to go, hey, like none of you don't carry the burden. I'm just kind of telling you what's kind of going on, but please don't take it on board, because that's the last thing I really want to do at this point in time, because that's going to stress me even
But
more
I think it's
if you start to
I,
think that.
I think where
Yeah.
that kind of communication starts is like really with your partner as well. So being
Mm.
able to communicate, because I think like kids like will learn more from watching than from what you tell them. So like they'll see how
Oh
you
yeah.
communicate with your partner, like, at the end of your day and all that kind of stuff. Because I've notoriously, for my wife and my wife is amazing. I've notoriously been bad at this during our relationship is
Really?
communicate. Yeah, yeah. Like,
Oh,
if I'm not good, like I'll come in, she'll be like, how was your day? And I'll be like, it's fine. The classic, it's fine. It's good. Um,
it's fine. It's
Whereas
fine.
it becomes that thing of talking to her honestly about where things are at. Um,
Mm.
But then also is a completely different thing. This is going kind of all over the place. Especially
No,
for
no, go,
men, I
go.
also find communicating how things are going without the need to relive what you're going through.
Oh,
Because I
yes.
find sometimes for me,
Yes.
and I think I was looking into it, it's pretty common for men. Sometimes when you're talking about stuff, like you'll often then go back and relive the situation, which is exactly what you're,
Replay
yeah,
the
which
whole
is
thing.
exactly
It's
what you're
like,
trying to escape from. So it's the balance. It's the balance
yep.
of communicating it without
Yeah.
reliving it, whilst not making the other person feel like it's their problem.
Mm,
You get
yeah.
what I mean?
That's for sure yeah,
So
yeah,
just that
100%.
mindful
And it's always,
communication.
yeah, mindful communication. I
Yes.
like
So
that.
how to manage that? You know what? How to manage it all? That kind of, it's a better answer than me just saying don't accept shit. Is mindful communication.
Mindful communication.
Mindful
You need to
communication.
trademark that,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah. That
You
was,
need to
you know
trademark
what? I'm
that.
gonna I'm gonna write it
Write
down.
that down. Write that
Mindful
down. Write that down.
communication. That was good.
Mindful communication. Write that
I reckon
down.
if we can
All
if we
right.
can create a process on that, we'll be on to something.
For sure, man. Well, tangentially, then, we sort of talked a lot about communication up to this point. And I spoke to a friend of mine who sort of almost said, like, parenting is a bit of a retrospective thing, in the sense where you sort of reflect back on what you've done leading up to this point, and then sort of think, like, what could I do better? Or in some cases, some parents would really reflect really far back into what their childhood was like, and sort of say, oh, I don't really want that to happen, and therefore I'm going to make some changes. A bit of a question here for you. If you could turn back the clock, reflecting on 6 years being into parenthood thus far, was there anything you'd wish you'd done potentially a little bit different, or maybe change? And I know that you've got another one coming as well, so everything's in, you know, ever evolving.
Um, what would we change anything? Would I change anything? No, no. because I think like I always look back at this
I like that.
I'm incredibly proud of my daughter. Like she's 6. I'm proud of the little person that she is. Um, Same as my son as well, but like also he's 2 turning 3. So like every little kid has their personality, but as they grow, you get to see a little bit more of it. So my daughter, like she's 6. I'm incredibly proud of like who she is as a little person. But would I change anything? No. Like there different dynamics. Like back when she was born, I was working quite a lot, so I wasn't able to be around as much for probably her first 2 years or so, and then we went into COVID, which was which
man, COVID was that long ago.
yeah, man, yeah,
Jeez.
which was that was actually quite a cool time because we got to be at home with her during those kind of really formative years and that time, which I think was really good, especially with her being our first
blessing in disguise.
Yeah, 100% it was. So I think that was really good. Whereas I think otherwise I may have missed out on it a little bit. Yeah. And also COVID kind of forced me to change how I operated within the business too.
Yeah.
So like, I think like I think COVID for me anyway, from a family sense was a blessing in that space. Because who knows, like for me now, if COVID hadn't happened and I just continued on, I might be still operating the business in the same way as I was back then, which was kind of, 12-hour days, 6 days a week, all that kind of stuff, because that's all I knew. Whereas COVID forced us to do things a bit differently because we couldn't have
getting a bit creative.
Yeah, getting a bit creative, but also
things.
looking at how to run a business based upon the data you see rather than physical presence, which is a different method. Which then meant, like, for my son, I've been able to be around more, which is good and something I'm really thankful for.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, would I change anything? This probably isn't a great answer, no, because like one thing for me, I always remember you can't have the good without the bad. Like, because I always think, I really liked the Marvel movies and the Infinity Wars and everything like that, and like I looked at it after having. Well, as my kids got a little bit older, like Tony Stark's hesitation with messing with the multiverse. When I first watched it, I was like, because he's got a daughter, he's scared to die. That's why I thought when I first saw it. And then like as time's progressed on and I've, really loved my family. Like the thing was...
Rewatched it 10,000 times.
But the thing was like, he was scared to change something because what if it changed his daughter? Because that's the scarier thing.
Yeah, for sure. Because everything's already good.
Yes. Like, so for me, I wouldn't, I'm quite blessed in that way, but I wouldn't change a single thing because I'm so proud of my wife, my daughter, and my son. And if I changed anything, they might not be the little people that they are.
Yeah. You talked about something morbid like a couple of minutes ago about friends coming to you about suicide. Here's another morbid one for you. People who are cancer survivors.
Yeah, wow.
Well, because people who are cancer survivors will generally, if you have like a conversation with them, they'll say, and you ask them like, how is it? You come out the other end, and they would always say something along the lines of, well, I don't wish it on anyone.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone. But if I did get it, I wouldn't be where I was today.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I think what you said there's sort of very much in tandem, which is like, hey, like there's a lot of good that there's some bad that comes with the good, but trying to almost have this idea of like turning back the clock and changing something to potentially make something better might not always be the right way to go, because things right now, for the most part, is actually pretty good.
The growth is in the hardships.
100%.
So like if you're going through a hard time, whatever it is, like you just need to remember that this is where the growth is. And whether you believe in God, in universe, whatever it is, I always think that's the universe giving you what you asked for. Like if you ask the universe to make you a better parent, you ask it to make you better at business, you ask it to give you more money, whatever you ask it for, this is my belief, it's going to give you the opportunity to achieve it. It's not going to give it to you.
Work for it.
Yeah. So like if you ask to be a better leader, for example, for me, like in business, I'm always, asking to be a better leader. It will give you crises to lead people through.
Yeah,
so now I'm a lot more careful what I ask for.
It's like I don't need a lot.
Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with my leadership skills. I just want to be chilled.
Yeah. Was there anything that your two kids, and obviously the third one coming along, but just sticking with the two at the moment, was there anything throughout the journey so far that they sort of really gave you a bit of a different perspective, or have they sort of made you, what are you currently learning throughout the process so far?
Great question. So I always say when having my daughter is what made me a man. And I'm not sure if it was because it was having a daughter or whether it was just having a first kid. But what I found was or for me anyway, it took away all that bullshit machoism.
Yeah.
Whereas like you need to be like, like you guys don't dance, or you're stoic, or all that kind of stuff. You don't express your emotions, all that kind of stuff. For me, like when I have my daughter, it's like, all that was out the window. Like if she wants me to wear fairy wings down to the shop, it's what we're doing. Like if she wants to spend the morning dancing, that's what we're doing. Like all that kind of stuff. Which I think though, like that was a very necessary thing for me. She took all that away, and like, also like kids give you a degree of perspective too about what's important and what's not important. And the other thing as well is like, to a certain extent, like you realize that it's not about you. Like if you're providing for a family or needing to get something done, trying your best isn't good enough. Like you have to get it done. Like you just need to find a way. But then I always say for my son is made me a dad. Because my when we had one, I often find you can kind of be like, cool, which one of us has the most to give? Can you take the kid for a few hours?
No, this is advice. I don't know if this is, I guess depending on when I release this, second one on the way for myself as well. I don't know when this is being released, but I mean, I suppose I'll let you know now. Second one's on the way.
Congratulations.
So, okay. Give me all the advice.
So for the second one made me a dad, because for the first one, you can kind of do trade-offs. You're like, which one of us is taking the kid now? I'm going to have a bit of downtime to chill, that kind of stuff. Whereas when you've got two, you've always got one. So it's not a like, and then for me, like when we had one, I was very much the fun dad. If it was down to a fun activity, I was there. Like I'll do the fun activity. But in terms of the monotonous stuff, not changing napples, because like that was always fine, but just monotonous stuff like, making them do what they're meant to, going to bed on time, all that kind of stuff. I was pretty lax with when we just had one. Whereas when you've got two, I was like, okay, like we have to get dressed now. You have to brush your teeth. Like let's get this done. So like having my son. So and again, I don't know whether it was having a son or whether it was a second child is what made me a dad.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll definitely take that on board, because as you were saying, I was like, oh, that's actually quite true. Like currently, I wouldn't say we're very relaxed, but we're definitely sort of like, oh yeah, he's not going to nap today.
Yeah, you can just roll with it, but then you throw another one into that dynamic.
Yeah, you roll with it.
Yeah, changes it. So then I'm excited to see what I learn with the third one.
I was going to say, like, I wonder what the third will bring.
We'll see.
You've been a man, and then you've been a dad, and then like,
who knows?
Man, like,
I'll become all powerful.
Crazy, yeah, like omnipresent. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, and I think what you said there as well is, yeah, I think having a kid really changes things. Like I always use this analogy of like going into the prenatal classes before your first one, and they give you like a bunch of information, and you scour the internet. It's more information, but nothing hits home when you pick that thing up from, you snip the umbilical cord and you're like, oh shit. It's like all of a sudden you're like, what do I do here? You're kind of like staring at the baby. You're like,
Yeah, yeah,
help.
100%. But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
just find a way, as parents, because that's what you need to do.
I think what you said there was really good. Like, they really do force you in a really good way to really
Yeah.
get shit done. And it really takes, like, it really, like, almost cleans out all of the fog of like the procrastination and the I could probably do this tomorrow. I could probably make that phone call tomorrow. Probably send that email tomorrow. That's not too important. I could do. I think like once you get a kid, it's like the way I sort of look at it is, all right, if I do everything now, I will have more time with you. I probably should get it done. If not, if I procrastinate at some point, I'm gonna have to say, mate, gotta go to work, gotta do all the things I procrastinate, and then they're not gonna be happy, and then I'm gonna be feeling the whole father guilt thing. I'm like, I probably should have procrastinated. And I think having a kid really sort of puts that into perspective.
I think like the thing I always remember is like when you have a kid, it's no longer just about you. You've got these people who are completely dependent on you. And rightly or wrongly, we won't get into that because that's like, world socioeconomic dynamics. The opportunities that you give them will shape their life, will shape a huge part of the rest of their life and potentially their children's life if they have children. So like for me, when I'm looking at a task like, oh, can I be asked to do this or something like that, it's kind of like, what opportunity do I want my kids to have?
Yeah. And also leading by example.
Exactly. Like, I'm very fortunate to really enjoy what I do. So that definitely makes it a lot easier. But there's some things that I like about my job that I don't enjoy doing. But you just need to remember that, you get on with it regardless.
Yeah, for sure.
And then like
it's those little people
and
depend on
it's
us.
always the thing I say, like, you choose your hard. Like you choose your hard, like you could have, and again, like in that, I don't think there is a right way. It's just about like, what's going to be your way. Like you could be someone who maybe has kids and then decides like, I want to provide these kids the best future and then rip in as hard as you can, but understand that you're probably not going to have a relationship with them until they're after 25.
Yeah.
Because you're probably not going to see them for the first 5 to 10 years. Like I know my relationship with my dad was a lot about this. Like he had both my mum and dad had monster work ethics. And then, so like, I didn't see much of him when I was younger. And then from kind of 15 to 25, there was a large degree of resentment there. It was only kind of after I was 25 that I actually understood everything that he gave. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like or the opposite, You could be,
you spend as much time and then you
could
can't
be
provide.
a parent who, was the super fun dad, for example, for the first 10 years of your kid's life, until they look at you when they're, 10, 13, and they realize you're a loser. And then as a result, you don't really have a relationship with them, or you do, but then like, they kind of go to their kids like,
They kind of look at you as like
they're kind of
dad.
like, you're good, but you're not reliable and you're not really someone I want to look up to. And it's kind of like, shit, like,
It's such a fine line to ride. It's such a fine line to ride.
But I also think as well, like you got to remember, and this is hard, like life is a long time and your kids may not understand some of the things that you do for them until they're fully grown adults. And
Yeah. I mean, that's reflecting back. That's what I think
yeah,
about my
yeah.
parents too. It's like, oh, you done all this stupid stuff when I was young. It's like, oh, I hate you, I hate you. And then you hit 25, you're like,
You,
hang
you,
on,
you
you
did a
know what?
lot.
Like, you're
But
probably
one,
right. Yeah, I
but one
needed
thing I
that.
would say is it's not okay to put that pressure on your kids either. Like you can't be like, say for example, I work really hard so I can give my kids, certain opportunities. All you can do is set up the opportunity for them. You can't make them take it. Like,
Yeah.
and because otherwise
If you take it, you take
that's
it.
an unfair pressure to place on them. Because then that breeds
Yeah,
resentment in it. But then,
sure.
that way you lose both because you ripped in so hard to give them opportunities. Then you get fucked off with them for not taking opportunities. So then they get fucked off with you. And then you've missed out on both ends. They think you're a loser and you were never there.
Yeah.
It's like, don't do that. Yeah,
Don't
don't
do
do
that.
that
Don't
one.
do that. I think that's the classic. I think that's the classic example, right? Like, I've worked this hard to earn this much money, and now I want you to take this money and go
Yep,
study law. Can I do something else? No, you have to do law. It's like, fuck, I don't
yep.
want to do law. I wanna go do art. It's like, no, you have
But
to
it's a
do
thing of
law,
like
and
where
then
you
that's
honestly
kind of where,
communicate. You're like, because it's like in truth as a parent, like that is like your money or you and your partner's money, however you want to look at it. And you could be like, this money is available for you if you go to study law. I'm not going to say you have to do law.
mm,
If you want to go study something else, that's fine. But understand this money was earmarked for law or medicine or whatever it is. And you can be like, you can, like, does
yeah,
that make sense? Because
you can take it for for
I
that
think
purpose.
you've got to look at any investment of money as an investment decision. Like, so for
Mm,
example, you'd be looking at it in that way and be like, cool, like, I believe you going to study law has good career prospects. So I feel like that's worthy of an investment. And it's true. Like
mm,
you can't
it
fault
is
that
true.
logic. Whereas if you were like, cool, like now I'm looking at this for an art degree, you'd be like, cool, like for me, that's not as likely to generate as good a return. So I don't think that's a good
Yeah.
investment. You can still do it. And like, then you'd look at it and you'd be like, cool, then I might earmark this money for something else. Like I might earmark it to like
Mm,
help you into your first house or something like that. Because with an
or
art degree, you're
something.
probably
Yeah.
not going to have enough money for a deposit. Yeah.
You probably,
But like,
yeah. You probably need a
yeah,
little bit
but
more to
like it
get a
just becomes
house.
a thing of like, I think any money for your children, like all you can do is set them up with the opportunity. You can't make them take it. But then at the same time, I think, as a parent, whether you look at it in a dynamic
Mm.
of it's your money or you and your partner's money, like you can decide what's worthy of a good investment or not. But at the same time, I think like this is where
Yeah.
what did we call it before? What type of communication? I did
You wrote
write
it
it down.
down.
I'm just going to bring it
What's
up.
it? It's your trademark. It's
Mindful
your trademark, dude.
communication. It's where you just have to have
Mindful
mindful communication.
communication.
Like honestly,
Yeah,
because you know what, they might come back to
100%.
you and be like, "Cool, like this is my plan of what I'm going to do with my art degree," and they might have a really well thought out plan of how they're going to make it a viable
And then
career.
you're
Because
like,
like, let's not
yeah,
shit on it. Like people have done well with art degrees. So like
yeah,
they
for
might have
sure.
this well thought out plan about what they're going to do, and they might have the work ethic to match. So then you're like, okay, fuck, you've changed my mind. This is good.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
take the money.
mindful communication.
100%,
But I
mate.
think
That's
where it falls
good.
apart, and I think this
Yeah.
is not just like parent-child relationships. Like I think this is the same in relationships, in business, in anything. It's where the like it's what Jim Rohn, I think he said it. The quality of your life is determined by the
Sure.
quality of your communication, and I think that's true in
Mm,
every aspect.
that's a good one.
I
That's a
say
good
that as
one.
someone who is notoriously a
Always.
bad communicator.
I think we're always striving to be better communicators, whether we consciously or subconsciously
Mm.
realize it or not. I think that's something that I think everyone does, whether you know that you're actively doing it or not. Um, that's a different thing. But I think being a parent definitely sort
So
of 10x's
I
that
think
a lot,
something that I
a
really
lot.
enjoyed was seeing the connection between having a relationship, running a business, and then having children. is communication is a common theme across all of them. And so say, for example, like, and this is where things that I'll see about employment law and how you should handle issues around employment law, like in terms of notice periods, clearly outlining the concerns, potential outcome solutions, all that kind of jazz. You can use in your relationship and you'll probably get a better outcome.
True.
But then the same thing, something I learned about how to communicate effectively with my children, you can also use in a business setting as well.
Yeah.
Like not in a demeaning way, but like
words.
Communication is communication. And like, yeah. I think you can use like whatever method you use to communicate in business, will probably help you communicate better in your relationship and then with your children as well. And then the same thing, the communication methods you use there will probably be relevant in your business too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think that's probably a really good way to potentially end this episode, Dean. Well, I definitely took a lot out of it. Particularly with the second one coming along, there's going to be a lot of things to think about for sure. Yeah, 100%. Well, where can people find you? Where can people get help from
great
you?
Question. Our company is called The Right Fit Personal Training. So you can go to therightfit.co.nz, see any of our sites. You can also see my contact information there, and you can jump in and contact me there. But yeah, that's it. Always happy to chat.
It's cool, man. Well, it's yeah, awesome. It was great chatting, dude. Well, we'll catch you in the next episode, team.